From FingerLakes1.com, I'm Josh Durso, and this is Inside the FLX. March is Developmental Disabilities Awareness Month. It's been over 30 years since March was officially recognized as such, but a lot has changed in the world since. Even more has changed when it comes to the rights and care of those with developmental disabilities. Today, we're joined by two important members of the Wayne ARC team, Foundation Director David Johnson and Community Relations Specialist Jessica Blondell. Thank you both for coming in today.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us, Josh.
So let's start out with a little personal background, how you guys got involved with the organization and what your personal background was to get you interested in it in the first place. David, start with you.
I came out to ARC about 21 years ago. I graduated from college, wanted to make a difference. I knew some people that worked at Wayne ARC, so I came as a service coordinator, did that for a couple of years, and then I've kind of moved up the ladder doing other things, run some programs, and probably for the last 15 years I've done a lot of grant writing for the agency, program development, and then for the last 5 years I've overseen the operation of the foundation. And as soon as last year, our public relations department was kind of reorganized. So when we formed the foundation, the goal was to bring all public relations, marketing, fundraising underneath the foundation. So in addition to writing grants, I now supervise the public relations department.
And Jessica?
So I went to Mid Lakes, graduated from there in 2013. My aunt worked at Wayne ARC, so I'd been there for Take Your Kid to Work Day. I graduated from college at SUNY Plattsburgh in magazine multimedia journalism, so I kind of had a little bit of a public relations background from taking different classes up at school. So when I saw that these jobs opened up, I applied because I was from the area, liked what they did, liked the mission. So I've been working there for about 8 months now. And it's a really great job because I get to help people who don't necessarily have a very loud voice in the community.
So you just sort of took us right in the direction I wanted to go. What is the Wayne ARC? So sort of give us an overview, if you guys could, just sort of like the services, what the organization stands for, and what they do on a daily basis.
Well, the agency was formed by some parents back in 1964, individuals that wanted better opportunities for their children that had developmental disabilities. Over the years, we've provided services, vocational services, residential services, day services. That's the core of what we do. Over the years, through expansion, different endeavors, our mission includes people with and without developmental disabilities now. We continue to offer vocational, residential, day services, and we have an array of services that include grant programs that don't serve necessarily developmental disabilities or individuals with developmental disabilities. What else am I missing, Jess?
Our big push right now is just trying to get the fundraising up. And so like Dave said, he's the foundation director. So our foundation serves specifically Wayne ARC programs. So that's kind of what we're working on right now, is to try to get more opportunities for those people in different ways that aren't necessarily funded by, like Medicaid or whatever.
Traditional funding sources.
Right. So it's providing more up-to-date, more innovative things.
Innovation's probably the best word.
Right. I was going to say, what kind of opportunity does a month like this, where you have possibly a few more eyes on the subject, as far as getting that message out and letting people know what you do, and also securing some of that funding that I would imagine is pretty important to accomplish the things you guys work to accomplish?
Well, I think, for me, the residential and the vocational services is probably what I see as some of our stronger points, just because, everyone wants access to a nice house and like equal opportunity for, to have an apartment, to live on their own, or with,
right.
We have people who are married. Just because they have a disability doesn't mean, that they don't want those things too. So I think that that's a really awesome thing that we do. And so, people have this stereotype, I think, that, they just live in these huge group homes and, they just kind of sit in their room and don't do anything. And that's not really the case.
How difficult is it cutting through that stereotype?
It's pretty difficult, especially because people think we're a state agency too, so they associate us a lot with that.
Right.
And we are totally nonprofit, totally private agency. So I think it's a really cool thing that we do, to give those people those options, just like normal people in all of our communities. Mm-hmm. And then the vocational services, we have our own workshop right on site. People with developmental disabilities can go in, and we partner with people like Mott's and Zotos and Crossman, and they can package things that need to be done, or just do workshop kind of assembly lines, I guess. And it they get a paycheck at the end of the week, and I think it's really awesome. And we also help people get jobs in the community. We have 8 people working at Del Lago Casino right now. So it's really cool, I think, to be able to give them those opportunities.
What is the reception in the community like on that side? Because it seems like there is a lot of engagement, not just from people, but from businesses, stakeholders who are actually interested in seeing the cause you guys are working towards actually come together.
There's been a growing push of getting people out in the community. So that's kind of forced us over the years to develop more relationships with partners, all the ones that Jess mentioned, because the push through OPWDD, which is the governing body of the majority of services we provide, it's a person first. So they look at everybody as an individual, and they look at what individuals want out in the community, whether it's a residential opportunity, they want to live on their own, a vocational opportunity, whatever their goals are. OPWDD and all the agency or provider agencies are working towards those individual goals on an individual basis. So we have to be creative. We have to be innovative because no two people are the same. No two people have the same goals. Mm-hmm. So we're forced to develop those relationships.
So right now I wanted to sort of cycle over and talk to us a little bit about some of the things you guys are developing right now, some of the things you're working on, some of the expansion that's happening. I understand you guys are taking on quite an add-on to what you currently do. So walk us through that.
I think our biggest project in the works right now is going to be a street of shops. We're going to name it Erie Shore Landing. So that's going to be coming up here in a couple of months. We just got the bids back for that. Just got a ton of grant funding, hundreds of thousands of dollars. So that's basically going to be, we're going to take out the front end of our building right now, and it's going to be an ice cream shop, a deli, and a coffee shop. And it's going to be all new, redone, and our individuals will have a chance to work there. We'll have a training facility in the back where they get to learn skills like money counting and food prep and customer service and those kinds of things, so that they can have a job that's technically in the community but still has that training component, I guess, to it at Wayne ARC. So that'll be really cool. That's coming probably late fall, I would assume, by the time we get everything situated.
For those who might not understand the scope of what that entails, how much time have you guys been putting into this? How long has this sort of development been in the works?
Since before I started.
Yeah, the idea of developing opportunities out in the community, 10 plus years. Right. The actual concept of the street of shops has probably been 2 or 3 years. We've received funding from Golisano Foundation. I think we got secured DAC grant 2 years ago. Mm-hmm. Empire Development money we got close to a year and a half ago. And this past cycle, which just was awarded within 3-4 months, was Erie Canal money. So until you're engaged in one of these big processes, you really don't appreciate all the work that goes into it. Because we just awarded bids, and we're probably we might be another 12 months before actually opening the doors to this.
Right. Now, broadly speaking, what would be some of the big challenges that you guys face on a regular basis just in operating and doing business on a day to day?
I think communication's probably our biggest challenge, just because we have a lot of different satellite locations. Like we have 14 or 15 IRAs, which are homes that individuals can live in, and then we have supported apartments. So those are scattered all across Wayne County. We have clinics in Genesee, Niagara, Orleans, and Wayne County. We have.
I was going to say I wasn't going to make you name all of them.
Yeah, so we have.
You did much better than I would have done.
We're in 8 different counties, so it's kind of hard to kind of rein everybody back into one centralized location.
Yeah, when I came to the agency, we had the main campus in Newark, and then our residences, and then we also have Roosevelt Children's Center, which is our integrated preschool in Newark. And communication wasn't a big deal. We probably employed half the people we employ now. But as Jess alluded to, when you expand your footprint, I mean, across counties, that's a barrier to communication just amongst ourselves, amongst our employees.
Okay, so then the obvious question has to be, how difficult is it actually operating over that wide a space? Wayne County alone covers a whole lot of ground, and the communities are really spread out. You're crossing county borders. What kind of challenge does that pose beyond the communication side of it? The operation side must be pretty difficult too, right?
I think other departments might be able to speak to that but in a better way. HR, I imagine it's a nightmare for HR, right. Employing staff, training staff. I do some training for our new hires, and when you hire a new clinician out at Orleans or Niagara County, they're coming to our facility. So just logistically, that's a tough sell.
Mm-hmm. So rebranding. Let's talk about rebranding. You guys are going through some changes of the sorts. So I guess let's start with you, Jessica. Walk us through what some of those changes are, what people can expect.
So Wayne ARC is technically a chapter of ARC New York, which is the organization that we are a member of with, dozens of other organizations pretty much in every county in New York.
Right.
So they have certain standards that they want us to meet as one of their member agencies, and one of those is getting away from the ARC and moving to ARC, because we want to get away from that offensive acronym. So that's the biggest step forward for us, and so they had 3 options basically, and we chose to go with the full rebrand to go with in line with them. So we'll be using their logo, all of their guidelines, I guess, to kind of bring that sense of unity, I guess, to the rest of the member organizations or whatever.
Brand recognition.
Yeah. So we're in the process of kind of going through that, as well as other ARCs around us. And we are bringing in Causeway Community Partners from Rochester. They're going to help us with the rebranding process that's going to start end of April. So we're kind of working with them right now to get some brand feedback, I guess, and just kind of develop our specific goals and missions, because we do so many different things that are outside of just helping people with developmental disabilities. So hopefully by the summer we will be fully rebranded to ARC of Wayne. And yeah.
And just, David, I think you were about to go there, but just on the uniformity side, I would imagine that the grant writing and the funding and seeking that out, that effort must be a little bit easier if there is sort of this group push, a united front, all working towards the same goal, right? Right.
That brand recognition is so important, what you notice, because Jess touched on it. We're trying to get away from the acronym ARC because it's offensive, and especially with Wayne County having the county name in it. Jess alluded to it earlier. People think we're a county organization. So the first question is, where do you work? Wayne ARC. Oh, what's the ARC stand for? So that whole rebranding is going to try to get away from that whole idea. And usually the answer is, well, the ARC of Monroe County? Yeah, well, we do the same thing, only out in Wayne County.
Now, I have to ask, what's been the biggest thing that you guys have seen change in your time? Obviously, you've been with the organization a little bit longer, so you might be able to speak to this one a little better, David. Just give our listeners an idea of how things have changed, even from the perception, the community outreach, historically. It seems like things have changed a great deal. Is that the case?
On some fronts they do. We are reactive typically to state mandates, and the state, this will be my opinion, not the agencies, but typically the state puts down mandates and they change things, and to me it's a lot of semantics. It's the same thing, just by a different name. The agency, to our credit, has always been pretty innovative. We're always looking for funding sources that are alternative to the Medicaid and typical funding sources. So that's allowed us to be kind of on the leading edge of whatever it is, whether it's residences, vocational opportunities, the street of shops, creating opportunities for people, where other people are trying to fit individuals into existing spots. We've never hesitated to really go out and create spots. whether it be vocational or residential opportunities.
Is the big push seems to be that there's an effort for more integration. Is that really what you guys are, as a coalition, as a force, that's what you guys are pushing towards?
I think that's the ultimate goal, community integration. I mean, there was a big push. It's kind of waned a little bit, but a lot of agencies have closed their workshops, their shelter workshops over the years. We still have ours up. It's flourishing. One of the things we've always tried to do to dispel those stereotypes that we talked about earlier is the fact that there are those negative stereotypes. So since the day I came in there and I was out in the community and I'd encounter people that had a negative perception of the agency, I've always welcomed them. Open door. I'll come give you a tour anytime you want. And since Colby and Jess have come on board, they've also done that. Anybody that wants to have a tour, contact us. We would love to do it because we've never given a tour. I've never given a tour and not had an individual or a group amazed by what we do, what goes on inside our walls.
I was going to say, is that the big takeaway?
It's eye-opening. Yeah, because Jeff said it earlier. People think we're a state agency. They equate us to the state school, and they think that awful things go inside these walls. And when there's talk of the sheltered workshops closing, the people that we serve, they get upset because it's not just a vocational workshop where they're learning skills. It's their social opportunity for the day. And there's some real distress amongst the folks that we serve when there's even talk about closing the workshop.
Well, I would imagine that if those workshops did just cease to exist, there would be a major hole in the communities that you serve now, right?
Absolutely. They're doing meaningful work inside that workshop. And the reality is the economy doesn't support. I mean, everybody that we serve in workshop and that are working in shelter workshops across the state, I don't know if the economy can support all those individuals. And there's individuals, the workshops typically, and I'm not the program guy, but typically they're serving people that are training. So they're working at less than a 50% work rate of what a typical person would be doing. So there's not necessarily vocational opportunities in the community for those folks. And if they were to go out in the community, there's a dollar attached to that. And it's not always appropriate or politically correct to talk about the money side of it, but the reality is, if Johnny wants to go out and work in the community and Johnny's working at a 30% rate, well, you got to get him staffing, you got to get him transportation, and you got to find him a place in the community that's willing to take him, and that's not always easy to do. So
let's talk about organizations like yours often host events and things like that, different ways that the community can kind of get engaged with you guys, learn about what you do. Anything coming up this year that people can get involved with and sort of get their hands dirty in the whole process of doing the good work that you guys do?
Well, everyday operations, we take volunteers. Roosevelt Children's Center is always looking for volunteers. We have this foster grandparent program where grandparent or older people can come in and read or play with the preschoolers. So that's kind of cool. As far as events go, our big fundraiser of the year is our golf tournament. It's always a lot of fun. It's coming up June 25th at Wayne Hills in Lyons. That's a great way to get to know people in the agency, people who support us, why they, just talk to them why they support us, or what they're doing to partner with us. Our wine event's always huge hit. Last year we tripled, I think, our fundraising just because everyone had a great time bringing different wine vendors, beer, spirits. We have a lot of food, like comfort food, mac and cheese, French fry bar, that kind of thing. So it's a lot of fun.
Healthy stuff.
Yeah. It's a lot of fun, and people, just get to know a little bit about our agency, not really from like the employee side of it, but more of like why we do it. And then we have different events that our pre-vocational services go to, or our community services. They go to like the Amherst games and some of the Newark Pilots games. We have one individual that sings the national anthem beautifully, Patty Grimes, at some of the Pilots games. So stuff like that where people can kind of see some of the folks that we serve, not necessarily in our walls, but.
Now, I'm curious. We got a couple extra minutes here. Just in general, when you watch other organizations like yours struggling in different parts of the state, what do you guys think, or what kind of mindset does that give you guys while you're continuing to try and push forward and continue doing the work, but also trying to make sure that you're sustainable?
I think there's a lot of sharing information. I know our agency is part of a collaborative of Finger Lakes. It's the collaborative of the Finger Lakes, which incorporates a bunch of ARCs. So it's an opportunity for different departments, like there's an executive committee, HR committee, to share best practices and kind of learn from other people's mistakes and steal their good ideas. So, no point in reinventing the wheel if someone else is doing it properly and effectively.
So, all right, last question. I want you to get your crystal ball out, and I want you guys to just walk our listeners through what you believe the business that you're in, the work you're doing, what that work will look like 10 years from now, if you can imagine that far ahead. Yeah. Lots of uncertainty, I know.
I'd like to think that it's more people that we serve out in the community doing, whether it's jobs or community service or just, living in apartments, whatever it is. Just because I think we have this sense of inclusion that's trying to be pushed forward in our society, whether it's race or gender, whatever it is. So I think hopefully that disabilities can be part of that, because it's such a huge population that people just forget about. And so I think I'd like to see that part of it go into the future, just having people be more accepting of people who are, no less significant than any of us.
Is it difficult keeping that going, just piggybacking right off of that, is it difficult keeping that in the forefront with all of the other social and injustice, all of the other things that are happening in society right now?
I would say so. I do a lot of the community relations stuff, so I'm constantly doing social media and all that. And I see a lot of this, racial inequality and gender and stuff taking over the media and just saturating it. And then people with disabilities kind of get left behind, I think. So this is why Developmental Disability Awareness Month is so huge for us, is because we get to go, we're going in a couple schools and coming up in the next couple weeks. So we get to go talk to these kids who don't maybe necessarily know anyone with a disability, but they get to hear about all this other stuff going on. But we kind of, say, don't forget about these people.
Yeah, and our executive director, David Calhoun, has mentioned to me many times over the years, when fundraising or creating programs, the developmental disability population is never the poster child. It's always the cancer survivor, the child, or even the Humane Society, but it's never our population, so it's an inherent barrier.
Well, I really appreciate you guys coming in today. Obviously, important stuff, important work that you guys are doing, so thank you for that service, and best of luck moving forward with everything else that you have going on.
Thanks, Josh.
Thanks for having us.
That's going to do it for us today. I'd like to thank our guests, Jessica and David, our listeners, and of course, FingerLakes1.com for making this podcast possible. Inside the FLX airs Sundays at 7 p.m. on Spectrum Channel 1304 and is available on iTunes, Stitcher, and the FingerLakes1.com app. Thanks for listening, and we will catch you next time.